I'm Miwa Messer. I'm the producer and host of Port Over, and I've really been looking forward to this interview. And yeah, I say that frequently, but when I get to talk to people who are poets and novelists and memoirists all in one go, that's when I'm sort of in my sweet spot. Hala Alyan has been doing amazing work for more than a minute. Salt Houses was her debut novel. 2011, 2012 won the Dayton Literary Peace Prize, and I think I got the pub year wrong, but five collections of poetry, two novels, and now a memoir called I'll Tell You When I'm Home, which is really, really terrific. Hala, I'm so happy we get to do this. This is so exciting for me.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So, one of the things I was thinking about, because 29th year and The Moon That Turns You Back are the
Mhm.
most recent poetry collections. Sophia Sinclair, who did review the memoir for the New York
Yes.
Times Book Review, her poetry sort of sits on a continuum with you.
Mhm.
Aria Aber, who wrote a novel called Good
Yes.
Girl,
Yes. Yeah.
oh man, like this Prairie Schooner series, they're both Prairie Schooner poets. And also Kaveh Akbar, his poetry, like
Mhm.
all of you guys sit in a continuum, and it's so exciting and it's so fresh and it's so smart and it really pops on the page. But I can't remember if the poetry came before the fiction. I know the memoir is the most recent thing,
The
and we're going to
memoir
come back to
just
that.
came. Yeah, 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 yeah.
But
The
with the poetry and the fiction,
so the poetry, I mean, it's sort of like the poetry was published first.
okay.
So I published the first book was called Atrium. It was published by a press called Three Rooms Press, and
Hmm.
that would have been in 2012.
Okay.
And then Salt Houses was 20, I think 17 or 2016.
Oh, my sense of time
And
is so
then
squirrely now.
no, but you're right. You're right in the sense of like that's when I started publishing. It's just like
Okay.
it was I think I had two or three poetry collections
Okay.
out before the novel came out.
Okay.
Um and so yeah, the poetry was published first, but the writing, I mean, I've been writing across genre
Hmm.
since I was a kid. I
Okay.
mean, not memoir, obviously. Imagine like a
Right.
7-year-old memoirist. But like I was writing like little stories and like poems and whatever. I mean, for as long as I can remember.
Hmm.
It's just that I found like a space in publishing first in poetry.
Okay.
That actually had a lot to do with spoken word and doing open
Yeah.
mics. Like I started doing open mics and there was this now shuttered place called Cornelius Street Cafe in
Which I
Manhattan.
loved,
I love
loved,
to
miss all the time.
it's such a home for me. It was really like I was so new to New York and I'd
Hmm.
never done any of the like open mic or reading series or anything like that. But that was where I met the publishers of the first collection. They
Okay.
ran one of the series and they were amazing and they were just like, let's put some poems together. And
That
so it just was like it was just like a much it was a much more easeful process is what I'll say than like publishing other genres.
it's a little looser.
Well,
It's a little
there's
looser.
no gatekeeping. There's no like you don't
Yeah.
need an agent. You don't need you can go straight to, I mean, sometimes you do for like bigger houses, but
Hmm.
it was totally different. And then the whole time, I think even when Atrium was published, I had already started working on what would become Salt Houses.
Okay.
So I was like working on that kind of quietly in the background.
But you didn't get an MFA. Am I remembering that correctly? You've always just been doing the
I did
work,
not
right?
get an MFA.
Okay.
I did my undergrad in Beirut in political science at
Okay.
AUB. And I was gonna do law school. I was gonna do
Okay.
international law, and I was studying for the LSATs and everything. And then this was senior year, and me and my dad got in this like dumb fight, and we didn't talk to each other for a couple months, which was as we were wont to do.
Hmm.
And in those months, I just was like, I don't want to go to law school.
Right.
My dad wants me to go to law school, which also really funny. Now I'm like, I should have gone to, I would have been great at, would have
Right.
loved to go to law school. But I think there was also a little bit of like rebellion. And so
Hmm. Hmm.
I had two close friends that had graduated the year before and had moved to the States and were studying psychology. And it was really just kind of lack of imagination. I was like, I don't want to do poli sci. I don't like my household at that time or the parents that I had at
Hmm.
that time, and I say that because then my younger siblings had different parents. Like, I don't think it wasn't even on an option to be like, I'm gonna go
Right.
do a creative degree or
Right.
something. And it's not that they were not supportive. They were just like, do that on your own time. That's not like a job. And so I had to pick something to go
Right.
do grad school. And so I just was like, let me do grad psych. And I had done
Hmm.
maybe I knew nothing about it. And then it just worked out. It was really like it's one of the few times where you make a choice very impulsively in your like some major impulsive choice, and then it just works out perfectly. And you go, oh, was that actually running on intuition more than impulse? 'Cause, like, maybe some part of me was like, "Yeah, like, there like, clinical psychology is all about, like, meaning making and stories and" you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
eavesdropping essentially on people's lives, all of which are things I like to do, all of which are things that are connected to the other things I do.
It's detail and it's character, right? I mean, all
And
of
it's
your work.
curiosity, it's also, like, an almost pathological inquisitiveness
Yeah.
where you're just like, "I gotta know." Like, if there's a secret, I must uncover it. If there you know what I mean? I need to know what you're talking about. I need to know what's happening here. I need to figure this out. And then just this, like, also combined with, like, an obsessiveness, like, I just have
Mhm.
sort of
Mhm.
an obsessional mind if I can funnel it in the correct direction, serves me, and then sometimes it just goes totally astray. But, like, in therapy, if you can put it in the direction of, like, "Oh, I wanna figure something out," you know, like, I'm really invested in, like, committing to figuring this out, and then same thing with writing. Like, I
Yeah.
that's you get a book done. Writing a book is incredibly tiresome in that you just have to keep
Mhm.
sitting and doing it, and a lot of the time you have no idea if anything's gonna come from it, and half the time you don't even know what you're saying. But it's like if something gets its hooks in me, and that can just be a character or an idea or like an
Mhm.
ending sometimes, then I'm good. Then I'm like, I'm not gonna stop until I figure out what's going on here.
You said something in an earlier interview about poetry that I think really does apply to all of your work, which
Mm,
is you think of poetry as a way to witness. Like that drives all
yeah,
of it.
yeah, yeah.
And whether it's, you know, uncovering the secrets, finding the however you want to describe it, but I love this image of poet as witness, and I'm going to expand it to writer as witness, right? Because I mean, I'm good if I'm reading a novel and they're just very pretty sentences and not a lot happens, I'm great. But I will acknowledge I am in the minority in that. Most people want stuff to happen.
I'm like you. I can be appeased by beauty.
Yeah, right?
I
I
can be
just,
pacified by it. It's enough for me.
it's the
You know?
voice, but for me, voice and character are inseparable.
Yes.
So if I'm reading your poems, like I know who's driving and you leave
Mm.
everything on, there's some stuff where I was like, wow, okay. And the modern poets that I like are like that, you know, Cave, Aria,
Right, right,
Sealey,
right,
like
right, right, right.
they're doing really interesting stuff. But
Right.
again, there's a level of I think there's a level of trust in the reader where you're just like, I'm just going to tell you the thing. And maybe you get a
Yeah,
little judgy and maybe you don't, but I bet you're going to relate to it. And I think that's where the
yeah.
real power sits, right? Like, think of how we're taught poetry, right? This is a thing I
So
come back to, but I'm like, do I really need to read Keats? I'm not sure I need to read
I
Keats,
don't. I think I can answer that for you. I don't know that you
right?
need to read kids. I think there's also something like you ultimately end up reproducing in life, and that's true for like
Hmm.
relational habits, it's true for writing, it's true for everything. You end up reproducing what like moved you
Yeah.
at some point in your life. And I think there's a lot of that where like, yeah, I think some part of me is I'm like sort of a rehabilitated like liar. You know, like I
Hmm.
spent so much of my childhood and early adulthood like having a very complicated relationship with the truth and with performance and what audience and the idea of like how could I get the things that I wanted from people which is a trauma response in its own way. I
Hmm.
understand context, etc. But then I got sober,
Hmm.
and the sobriety meant more than one thing. It meant like, okay, I'm
Right.
not going to drink anymore. I'm going to stay away from these things. But also, it meant like I have to like at the very least tell the truth to myself.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so in writing, that's what I mean, you can't like if I was dishonest or if I was being disingenuous or contrived in my writing, I would know it.
Right.
It's less about whether the reader if it's like I will know that I'm doing that, and then that will feel icky, and I don't want to kind of see that through. So that's definitely part of it. But I think another part is just like I love that kind of writing. I'm so like just delighted by it and so
Hmm.
moved by it and so compelled to kind of lean in more and more when I see something where I'm just like, "Oh, wow, you just said that. You're gonna just let us hold that for you." You know? But, like, it could go in so many directions. What if everybody doesn't like and, like, I think there's something so delicious about getting to witness that as the reader
Yep.
that I'm like, "Let me try it." And then I tried it, and then I was like, "Nothing I mean, I was so afraid, like, certainly with, like, the fiction you can kinda hide behind a little bit. Certainly
Hmm.
with poetry, you behind less, and memoir, you got nowhere to hide.
Right.
But I think there was something where it's like I started to experiment a little bit more, even with, like, sex scenes in, like, the 2nd novel versus the 1st one,
Uh-huh.
what I mean? And then poetry yeah, and then poetry with, like, the last 2 that you mentioned, like,
Hmm.
What Turns You Back in 29th Years, like, I'm just gonna start to say some things. I'm gonna just
Hmm.
start to, like, say it straight. And I think just kind of every time doing it and holding my breath and being like what's gonna happen now? Am I gonna get in trouble? Like, who's gonna, and then it's like nothing happens. If some people don't like it, they don't like it. I think there's also this thing where it's like, yeah, I'm sure. I think a lot of people probably don't like my writing or don't like me. It doesn't. What's gonna happen? Like that's.
The words still have to get down on the page. I'm hoping to, because the Sealey challenge is next month. It's August, and it's read a
Are
poetry
you
book a
gonna do
day.
it?
I'm hoping to this year. There's some stuff
I've
that has come
never
out in
done
the
it.
last couple of years that I'm like, can I do it this year? But also, we do produce 3 episodes a week of the show. So
You're doing 3 a week?
yeah, we do. I don't host every single episode, but there's a lot that happens. So I'm hoping to do the Sealey challenge this year. And also, I do love Nicole's book, The Ferguson Report, where she does the redacted
Oh, it's
poems.
brilliant. Yeah, yeah.
And Dwayne Betts has done redacted. The redacted stuff I'm
I
totally
love her.
fascinated by.
Redaction is, I mean,
Right? Like how you turn a
mhm,
really ugly thing into art. It's just like my
right.
eyes are getting big just thinking about it. But I'm kind of hoping that we might actually pull some people into at least 29th year, if not Moon as well. But like,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it feels like a good moment for
I mean,
29th year. It feels like a really good moment. I'm like, hi, the
I
world's
love
on
it.
fire.
It
Do
is
the
a it's a
thing.
very words on fire. It's a very, like, worlds on fire book, yes.
And I like the idea. Sarah Kay does really interesting stuff too. And like,
I love Sarah Kay.
right? That
I
last book.
love her. I've
Oh,
also met her in person and love her, period, but I think
mm,
she does, and it's so interesting because there can sometimes be this snobbery of, like, spoken word versus what's on
hmm,
stage, and, like, she is such a brilliant example of how that is such a false dichotomy.
right,
And,
right.
like, how it's like and she does it's all the same, you know what I mean?
Hmm,
Like, so you'll read something on the page and, like, you'll read it on the page,
hmm.
hear it read aloud, and it's like, how are you able to do how are you able to do that? What kind of sorcery is that?
But you also come out of that as well. I mean, I think it's so important to catch the voice, right? Like when I think of the voice of Salt Houses, or I think of the voice
Yeah,
of Arsonist City, and you have a polyphonic cast in both
yeah,
books, right? And
yeah.
so, and everyone sounds like themselves.
Mm.
And I mean, what? It's
It's
eight
it's
voices,
actually so much harder for me, like, with I have tried before to do first person fiction.
really. And no,
I find that to be I mean, it's never gonna work.
that's
I'll say it
so
now.
interesting.
I'll
Okay,
put it
that's
out there now.
really
I don't
interesting.
think it'll ever work. I mean, I don't know. Maybe someday, but it's maybe I'll like maybe a short story sometime will work,
Hmm.
but it doesn't I can't do it. I can't like I don't have the attention span even I think also for a longer form project for there to be just a single
Right,
voice.
right.
I think I
Huh.
would lose interest maybe in the plot.
I mean, the memoir started as an essay collection, and then you
Right.
were kind of chipping away
That's a
at it,
perfect example.
thinking,
I lost interest in my own plots.
right?
I lost interest in my
So,
own life when I was doing yes, you're completely correct.
but
That's
you
right.
start as an essay collection, which is hard to begin with because you're piecing together past you, future you, current you,
Correct.
but you'd sort of left out the current you because, there was clearly a plan to the essay collection, and that you still looked at your editor and said, something feels
Well, it's actually flipped, and that's, like,
okay.
the thing of an editor that, like, is not gonna let you get away with something
Right.
that's not working,
Uh-huh.
which I mean that truly, is th so this is an editor we were just talking about it, Laura, and so
Yeah.
she worked with me on Salt Houses. I mean, bless her, like, so I we sold it as a I actually think I was content to hide behind the essay collection.
Sorry.
Sold this proposal that was, like, 4 essays, and I was like, "We're doing great. I'll, like,
Mhm.
do 4 or 5, and I'll, like, write a couple more, and one will be on nostalgia, and one will be on
Mhm.
will be on eating disorders, and one but," and I remember when she bought it, she was like, "Look, there's stuff here. I don't think this is gonna be the final 4, but there's stuff here." And I was like, "That's fine.
Okay.
We're gonna figure it out later."
Okay.
And then it was a really long, torturous process of just like trying to like pin down what exactly she kept using the term like the connective tissue and also
Mhm.
spine, like what's the spine? Like even if we're gonna do essays, something needs to be binding them together.
Right.
And then that was what sort of moved me in the direction more of memoir. I felt really resistant to memoir actually. I felt really
Yeah.
resistant to the I. I mean, again, I was just like, I can't just live inside the first person indefinitely
Right.
and just tell the story and it was like, "Well, yeah, but I mean, this is a nonfiction project. I don't know what you were thinking was gonna happen." And then it just and so then it was I remember her at some point just being like, "What if you just try to write what's happening now, like in this"
Mhm.
Like, just try to tell the story directly. And it's because I was trying to do all these narrative poetic tricks as a way to work around, like, just being like, this is the bold truth, you know? And so, like, I was doing, like, Bluetsy style stuff, and I was trying to do,
Hmm.
like, really fragmented style
Yep.
things. Um, tell stories in teeny tiny vignettes, which I still kind of keep some of that form,
Hmm.
but what was missing was a larger structure.
Right.
And so then it was like, okay, well, the only way you're going to be able, and I do think this is so true. It's like you earn the right to meander if you house something in a like larger, more confident sense. Like the reader needs to be like, I know that I'm in the hands of someone that's going to
Hmm.
get me where I need to go. And then that's when like the you can suspend disbelief for there to be like these like vignettes things or like really
Right.
like kind of a wandering narrative or to go from the past to the present to here to there. Here's an experimental paragraph, here's a whatever. And I kind of wanted to do that without connective tissue
Hmm.
because then I didn't want to answer for what I was writing. That's the truth. And then I had to, and then it's like, what are you going to do? You have to answer for what you're writing or don't write it.
And I got so invested in your story of motherhood. And I have to say, motherhood is not necessarily a subject I gravitate toward. I listen, do what
Just,
you're going to do. Everyone have your thing.
I have the
Um,
exact same philosophy on that.
yeah,
Yes.
I literally, I was just with a pack of cousins and someone attempted to pass me a baby and I ducked. And my other cousin laughed and said, no one was trying to pass you that baby. And listen,
You just,
babies are delightful.
you
I am
just saw a
proud that
baby
they're
coming
babies.
at you and you're like, nope.
I,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and they're great, and I'm delighted my other cousins had babies.
Yeah.
They're lovely children,
Yeah.
but I like them when they have words and can say, I would like a sandwich, please.
Oh, so nice.
I am just, so yes, I did duck. I physically ducked. And my
The best
dude
part of
loves
this is that
babies.
they weren't even trying to give you the baby.
No,
That you just
it's reflex.
you
It's reflex. But I was so invested. And
really
you
interesting.
had such a vulnerability on the page. I mean, it's
Mhm.
such a primal call for you, but also the way I've met the women in your family, right? Or your interact like the
Yeah,
way you
yeah.
just lay it out. You come from a really long line of very interesting women, I have to
They're
say.
fucking fascinating.
Yeah, right. Okay. So I mean,
And they're so like difficult, present
uh
company very much included, and like complicated and
yeah.
like stubborn and also
Hmm.
so loving
Hmm.
and so like creative and so funny.
Yep.
Like just like acerbic and funny and like sharp-witted and yeah. Yeah, no, they're very it's like a very interesting bunch.
Has your mom read the memoir yet? Because at some
Hasn't
point
read it
she
yet.
had not yet.
My mom has ordered 20 copies of the book,
Okay.
which I find to be so darling and so endearing, and has not read it yet.
Okay.
And I actually think what one of the things that's happening is that she's sort of assessing other people's reactions
Okay.
first, and more people in our like circle, families
Yeah.
that are going to read it, and like, so far so good. Like everyone's like, okay. My brother is kind of like I feel like the gatekeeper of the family's
Hmm.
like, well-being in some ways. And so it was very much a kindness on his part. He read it and then he sent this really beautiful message to the
Hmm.
family that was just like, there's nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
He's like, nobody would read with a closer eye for like
Yeah.
the beginning. He's just like, you're good. Everyone's good. So I think she's gonna get to it in her own time. But I no longer, now that it's been out for a few weeks and now that
Hmm.
people in my life have read it,
Yep.
I'm not like I was really that was one of the bigger stress points because my mother notoriously is quoted throughout the book several times
Yeah.
being like, you better not be writing about me, And
Yeah,
so
but it was kind of fun. Every time she popped up, I'm like, you still have nothing to worry about.
she was like, yep, nope,
I
I
mean,
won't
also,
do it.
respectfully, she survived you as a teenager.
Barely. I
Yeah,
don't
but
know
she
that she would
did.
even say
I'm
she did.
sorry,
I mean,
but
she
she
was like,
did.
but she did survive me as a teenager, and she also, like yeah, I mean, it's so funny. I think when she and I can never figure out if we're just and I say this in the book, it's like, are we
Mm,
so similar? Are we so dissimilar? Are we somehow both?
right.
Like, how is it yeah. No, it's gonna be fine.
Um, yeah, no, she just seems like a very cool lady. She just
She's
seems like a
amazing.
very, very cool
She's
lady.
incredible, and it's really funny because I think I was really in some ways, like, my relationship with my father is a much more straightforward one.
Yeah.
It's a less complicated one, and
Hmm.
it's not been without its, like, thorny patches, but it's like, it's a pretty, like, I think he and I are similar in ways that
Mm.
or relationally for, like, a little bit more ease. And she and I have had just so many difficult, like, periods that are, I don't even know if difficult is the right word, just, like, really complex and, like, like, again, so similar, so dissimilar,
Hmm.
etcetera.
Hmm.
And I remember in the writing of it being like, I don't know how, like, she was worried about how it was gonna come across, and
Hmm.
I was worried about how it was gonna come
Right.
across. And it was so interesting when you're too close to a text, and I think this happens in nonfiction,
Yeah.
it's like it had to be mirrored back to me by other people, editor,
Yeah.
agent, etcetera,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
other folks in my life that were like, "No, this is actually such a beautiful portrayal of your mother.
Hmm.
Like, she's in some ways maybe the most compelling part of the story," or what, and I'm like, "Oh, good, that came across. It came across."
Motherhood is terrain, though, right? Like motherhood, I would actually describe
Oh, yeah.
motherhood as a country, right? Like it
Yeah.
is, you either are in it or you see it from a distance,
Yeah.
but like it is, and I'm wondering if motherhood is home for you. I mean, for a long time, you were kind of like, what's
I
home? I don't know.
think
You've lived around the
so.
world,
Yeah, yeah, like that tiresome, like, "Where do we begin?"
right?
I mean, I think that motherhood has transformed me in ways that I do not yet have a lexicon for, and I don't
Okay.
have, like, language for. I think that it has given me something to settle into,
Yeah.
and which I guess is a synonym for home, right? Like, everything I was just about to say, it's like, it's grounded me, it's given me a centering, it's
Right.
given me somewhere to, like, take root. Um I think that it has felt like very much like the thing that I've been
Mm,
looking for. And I've said this elsewhere, but it's like I don't, there's no guarantee. Like, I just because you really, really want something, which this book, a
mm,
big part of it is like about how much I really long for motherhood. It's
right.
like just because you want something doesn't mean you're gonna be good at it or you're gonna enjoy it or you're not gonna regret it as it arrives. And so there's been such a lovely, like, what a delight then to have
Hmm.
longed for a thing,
Right.
and when the experience arrived to be like, "Oh, this is a good fit for me."
Mm,
This is a good use of, like, my personality and the ways that I show up in the world, and, like, this creature and my personalities
right.
also are, like, a good fit for each other, and maybe even more because I think, when you're talking about, like, motherhood as, like, country, I think one of the big things that I've contended with over the last few years and wrote about in this
Hmm.
marriage that was really straining and
Yeah.
has since ended, right? It's like
Right.
I'm in the midst of getting a divorce now, is that I was very much like another person, the romantic partner is gonna be the country. That's the
Right.
arrival, right? It's the earning and cementing of love that's going to be my final passport in this life.
Hmm.
And so that meant I was, like, showing up for the relationship in all these sort of ways that were just that essentially to say, when I then had an infant, I was like, "Oh,
Right.
that's where that love goes."
Right. Right.
That's the appropriate
Right.
place to love like that, or to
Right.
show up like that in this, like,
Right.
unconditional, no matter what the other person does, the loyalty, the devotion, the whatever, all these things that in the end, I mean, loyalty sounds like you're complimenting yourself, but to be loyal to things that don't serve you is actually great harm to everybody involved. And so then to, like, actually be like, "Oh, this is the place where it can go." So it's not that it doesn't exist, the place where it can go, it's just that it was being funneled in a different direction.
But also the way we teach loyalty to men and women is actually gendered in a
Oh,
very
yeah,
weird way. Like
100%.
it's just it and I think about this, there's so much, and especially when it comes to parenthood, right? Like you still have the, well, I don't do diapers, and I'm like, why should your wife be doing it? Like I
Eh,
watched people struggle during lockdown. I'm like, what do you mean your person, what is
doesn't do
this is
each
not
other. Yeah, yeah,
1956. What is happening
yeah,
here?
yeah,
And it's wild to me. And like, why would you just think that's okay? Like, have we not
yeah.
made any progress here? What is
I
happening?
mean,
Empty
that
the
that social
dishwasher.
norming is very powerful, yeah.
Yeah, it's
And I think in my like, this is, I mean, obviously the book ends with, like, the first few
mm,
months after she's born, so it's like there's
right.
not, the sequel has yet to arrive of, like, what happens after, but it's like in my case, it was also, like, having a child with somebody that I think was very ambivalent about
Yeah.
fatherhood and was pretty, like, direct about it. I think not consistent in the
Hmm.
message, but was certainly often like, "I don't know if this is a good idea. I don't know if I can do this. I don't
Right.
know if I can do this," etcetera. And so it actually set up, this is gonna sound wild, but it kind of was liberating because
Hmm.
it that the social coding and the social, like,
Yeah.
role was so clear,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? And, like, that has in a way now that, like, the relationship is transitioning to
Yep.
not a relationship or, like, to a different kind, you know,
Right,
whatever.
right.
Like, it's kind of made it so much so, like, I am the primary caregiver, I'm often the sole caregiver, like, it's like this
Mhm.
like, it's been so clear actually since we both entered the experience of parenting,
Mhm.
um, that in some ways it's been easier actually than what I've seen other friends of mine, particularly in, like, cishet relationships, like, the kind of, like, the expectation and then the reality
Mhm. Mhm.
so mismatched, and in this case, I'm like, I'm not trying to say that either the expectation or the reality are that
Mhm.
great, but at least everybody knew what they were getting into.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think any of more of us than some might like to admit have met people who had children who really would have preferred not to,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
didn't think it through, or thought, well, this is what I'm supposed to get married, I'm supposed to have children, I'm supposed to have a
They just went
mortgage.
through the motions. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. And then you meet them later and
Yeah.
no one's happy.
Exactly.
No one
Exactly.
is happy. And so watching you sort of figure this out on the page though,
Mm,
right? Like you have this Didion line, and I'm going to ask you to paraphrase it because I will
yeah.
mess it up. But I love this, well, conflict, this collision between sort of the idea of past you and future you with
Mm,
no room for you in the immediate
right.
moment. And when I got to that point in the memoir, I was like, oh, that was not here when you started writing this. Like,
Right, right, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
can we go back to that for a second? Because I mean, Didion being Didion, we're all of a certain age. Once you're of a certain age and you've read Didion, there's no going back.
Exactly.
When you read her as a teenager, you're just like, oh, I can do stuff with words that is not
Mhm. It's permissive. It's
yeah,
very much permission.
completely. But past and future you
Yeah.
are not quite where we are.
Not on nodding terms, to
Yeah.
paraphrase her. Yeah, I mean, that's essentially it's like you would do well to I can't remember exactly the phrasing, but it's essentially like you would do we all would do well to be on nodding terms with,
Yeah.
like, different versions of ourselves. Otherwise, they're gonna come up at some point, you know what I mean?
Right.
They're gonna come, like, just, like, demanding their
Hmm.
due. And I do feel like that's in psych, there's a modality called internal family systems,
Okay.
and it's really similar, conceptually to that. It has this idea that, we have different parts that are like firefighters and managers and whatever, and there's a part that's the exiled part,
Right.
and the exiled part is just I would say most of us have some version of this. It's like the
Hmm.
part that you're like, "I will do anything to not feel you,
Hmm.
to not give you a place at the table, to not have you take the reins,
Hmm.
not have to listen to what you need and what you want
Right.
because it is so unbearably either painful or overwhelming or whatever, or reminding of such a painful time." And I think that's like there's definitely that collision in the book where it's just like that self for me was such a it's interesting as you're saying future and past, and you're right that there is no the present gets crowded out, which I think is
Hmm.
another way of saying dissociation, is like
Oh,
the
well.
present is there, right? Like, it's like I think that's a big part of what I'm trying to figure out through the book and in my life, frankly, in general.
Hmm.
It's like how to kind of keep returning to my life, like the act of like
Yeah.
continuously being like, rather than living in this like imagined future or contending with these past versions,
Right.
like, can you be here? Can you show up for this? And yeah, no, I mean, I think for me, the self that drank, that lied, that like ate too much, then purged too much,
Mhm.
then and like what like I really kind of characterize her in my mind as like wanted too much and like wanted the wrong
Mhm.
things, but was never even able to like admit the want. And so it was this like constant refusal and negation of desire while also living in a like an unending state of desire. Like that self is like the one that I think I've had historically the hardest time making space for.
But also culturally, we teach young women that they're not supposed to desire. It's gross, it's
100%.
messy, it's inappropriate.
Right,
It's
right,
we're not supposed to have appetites, right?
right.
And I'm just like, uh,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, no,
what?
I mean, that's like that archetype, if I can call, like, a part of myself an archetype, or
Right.
like that part that self within
Mhm.
the selves is like, she is all appetite, and
Right.
she's also, like, I think quite wounded and,
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
so afraid of both getting the things that she wants and not getting them, and abandonment,
Mhm.
and, like, that terror, like, that sort of desperate terror of abandonment, Like, I think one of the things that I figured out as I was writing is like, oh, like the person that has abandoned myself most consistently throughout my life is myself.
Yeah.
You know, like I've done it to myself so much more than any person that I was so afraid would leave at some point. It's like I was constantly leaving.
Right.
Um, and now it's been, yeah, and like now to have a kid, like my kid is 3,
Right.
which is like talk about an age of unbridled appetite and
Mm-hmm.
like desire and rage and like
Mm-hmm.
wanting a thing, and you know what? Not apologizing for it. There
Yeah.
is something so like we talk so much about the things we want to pass down to our kids or like you know,
Mm-hmm.
want to model things or whatever, but it is such a bi-directional
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
street where like to watch her again, I mean, there's a degree of socialization that has to happen because you have to live in the world
Right.
with other people, and I understand that, but like there is something about watching this little creature just be like, absolutely not. I'm not putting that in my mouth. Like, fuck you and fuck your eggs. Like,
Yeah.
get out of my face. Like, there's something about just like how, like, or watching her. I actually really love watching small children drink water.
Yeah.
Pay attention next time. They're just like slurping and
Yep.
gasping, and they're doing nothing but drinking water when they're drinking
Yes.
water. And there's
That
just,
is
I mean,
true.
something about that, like the joy is
Mm.
joyful, the rage is rageful, everything is what it is. Ah, what
There's
a
also a
watch.
physicality though that we give up as adults, right?
Oh, yeah,
Like
yeah,
if
yeah.
you've ever seen a tiny person decide to plank themselves, they're like, I you can't get that in my mouth. And every,
Oh,
you
no,
know,
no, she's like
the
kicking and
limb, yeah, the limbs are
like,
everywhere
yeah,
and you're just kind of
pushing,
like,
yeah, yeah.
okay,
Well,
or
also, is there anything more, I mean, weirdly inspiring than a
mhm,
little human just being like,
no.
"I don't wanna walk anymore," and just splaying out on the concrete. And you're like, "It's 100 degrees outside. What are you doing? Please get up." And she's just like, "No, I'm not gonna get up. You have to pick me up."
Mhm.
I don't wanna walk anymore. And I'm like, "You know what? I don't wanna walk anymore." Like, there's, like, something in the just, like, watching some of these moments where I'm like, "I also wanna do that."
Mhm.
And okay, fine, I'm, like, an adult in an adult world, and I can't quite do that, but, like, what can I do that's adjacent to that, that at least, like, lets out some of that energy and, like, gives it a home is, like, become the question of my life.
And adjacencies too, like if you think about displacement and exile, right? There are people who will use those as synonyms, they are not.
No,
Or people who will use memory and nostalgia as
also
synonyms, and
not.
they are
No.
super not.
Nope.
But the idea that you work in this space that's adjacent, right? And I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
it's partially too when you are physically moving around a lot or you're bicultural in different ways, however it works, but those adjacencies become really important,
Yeah,
and or being
they
able
do.
to function in spaces that are not necessarily an average. Like I can still sleep on planes, trains, car, like I can sleep anywhere.
Mm,
I can fall asleep standing up, because if that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do, right?
incredible.
It's a really nice skill to
I
have.
can't sleep in my bed.
Oh, that's a problem. But I mean, but you develop these sort of
But that's a different, but see, it's funny,
moments,
we're talking
right?
about the same thing and it's just it
Yeah.
manifested differently, right? So you adapted
Hmm.
it that way and mine is just like hypervigilance, and so I'm just like, I
Right.
can never quite settle.
But you do settle though on the page.
Well,
That,
I was just gonna say, when I think about the, like, plopping down,
yeah,
like, I'm kind of answering that question first, where I'm like, "When
right.
do I get to, like, throw myself on a thing?" I'm like, "You do it when you're writing,
Yeah.
or when you're making art, or when you're
Hmm.
playing with different mediums." Like, I think that's when you're doing it. That's when you're
Yeah.
just like, "Here is the thing, I'm not gonna shut up. Here's my rage, here's my
Hmm.
frustration, here's my betrayal, here's the harm I have caused and had caused onto
Hmm.
me. I'm gonna say it, I'm gonna say it, I'm gonna say it, I'm gonna say it in all these different ways." Like, I think that is an act of protest a little
Yeah.
bit. Like, it and a thing can both be reconciliation and protest at the same time, you
Yeah.
know? I think that that's, like, kind of this book was like I thought this was gonna be such an angrier book,
Mm.
you know? And it wasn't, actually. I mean, it is
It's really
it's
connect.
energized, yeah,
Yeah.
like, I think it's like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
there's a vibrancy to it, but I don't know that I would it's, like, not as there's so many things that I'm talking about and around that are, like, really merit rage. And I mean that
Mm.
even in things that I'm telling about stuff that I've done, right? Or
Right.
like had
Right.
happened to me or witnessed or whatever, or things sociopolitically or whatever. There's so much. And yet there are all these like soft landings.
Hmm.
And I think in writing that and writing through that, I was like, oh, what a blessing. I think I have had this life actually that
Right.
while I kind of think of it sometimes as like there's so much prickliness and there's so many hard
Mhm.
corners, like you've actually had quite a few soft landings, Hala, was one of like the takeaways that I had.
But do you also have to be more compassionate towards yourself when I mean, you
I
really do not leave any. I was just like, okay, hi,
I
here we
think
are.
you know what's funny? I think I am I will say that there are people, I will do this
Mm,
basically because other humans are implicated when you write nonfiction. And while I love the Anne Lamott, if people wanted you to write
mm,
nicer things about them, they should have behaved better. Conceptually, I'm aligned with that. Practically, I've had to be a
right,
little careful. But I will just say, without naming names of which people, that
right,
like there's a lot of people that have read the book, that have known me and known the different people in the book, and have said you were really kind in your
right,
portrait. And you have been like you were much gentler and you were much more generous than you needed to be
right.
across several stories, across different
Yeah,
folks.
yeah.
And so it's funny because I think when you say you leave it all in the field, I think I was probably the most exacting with myself
Okay,
because that's the one person I felt like I was like,
okay.
that's fair because I can answer to that.
Mhm.
That's between me and myself. Whereas everyone else, I mean, I'm not seeking accountability in other people. It's not like I'm,
Yeah, there's some
there.
folks who did you dirty, my friend.
Yeah, and I'm not
They're
not telling the
right.
stories, but I'm just like every time I'm telling a story, I'm also like, look, people have context.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's always like kind of the underbelly of what I'm trying to write about.
There are times too, though, where even if you're reading fiction, right, which obviously a lie, right? Like let's just lay it out.
Oh, I'm
Fictional,
100%
but
liars.
if
Oh,
you right, but if you get the voice wrong, right? If I think I'm being manipulated by a writer,
oh,
I'm more
nothing's
likely to put
ickier.
it down. And
Nothing's
certainly
icky.
there are people who have written memoirs where I'm like, we should have just called this autofiction. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
And in other cases, you get a novel where you're like, oh, you didn't want to call this a Okay. I
Yeah.
mean, listen, we're playing across words and everything else, but what I
Sure.
will say is if I think the narrative voice is lying to me, I'm not interested in finishing the story.
I
Because
know.
if I think you're playing with me like,
Yeah.
a cat and a chew toy, I'm not interested.
Yeah. I think they're one of the kinder, I mean, I've been really it's been a really lovely launch month.
Yeah.
Like it's been like really like people have written really sweet things, people have come to events,
Mhm.
people have asked beautiful questions. I've had really wonderful interviews, etc. And one of the things one of the things that has like stuck out to me in the last few weeks is actually by somebody that knows me.
Okay.
And he said something that really I was like, wow, that's one of the kinder things anyone's maybe said to me in
Mhm.
recent memory, where he was speaking to that a little bit of just like how you can kind of tell when in nonfiction or in like there's a little bit of like performance or there's a curation, which again, I'm curating and I'm editing and I'm doing all
Yeah,
of
yeah.
that. But like you can tell when it's sort of done in a particular way.
Mhm.
And he was like, yeah, I think with you, it's like the way that you are in real life is
Yeah.
exactly how you are on the page. And,
Yeah.
like, to have that said by somebody that actually can attest to that is such a it's, like, such a I was like, "Wow, that's the compliment of compliments."
Mhm.
'Cause it, like, is beyond just writing, right? It's like that's I mean, in psychology, like, one of the markers of health is integration, of
Yeah.
mental wellness is, like, how integrated are you? How much is there a connect to use Lauren's word, connective
Yeah.
tissue, like, a legibility in you regardless of the setting that you're in. How you show up in the classroom is not
Mhm.
dissimilar to how you show up as a mother, to how you show up with your friends, to how you show up with
Right.
your lovers, to how you show up with your, I mean, there should be some differences, right? I would hope, but like, that that you are recognizable as the
Mhm.
same entity across is
Mhm.
really like, yeah, I think that's kind of, it's a beautiful thing to be striving for, I think.
And two, reading is an act of connection, right? Like it's not this passive thing that you do kind of noodling around. It's just, it's not passive. It is, you're looking for
That we're doing it.
signals and
We're
markers or
taking out the
whatever.
world. Yeah, we're taking
Yeah.
things in, we're changing, we're being moved by them, we're being
Mhm.
devastated by them. Like, of course, I think reading is one of the more I mean, I actually think when I'm really, really burnt out, it's very hard for me to read.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
because you would think it's like, oh, you just get to sit there and,
Mm.
and I'm like, no, 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 no. What it requires for me to really show up for a text.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm sure you do this all the time, right? You're reading constantly.
Yeah, I am. I can't tell you how many books I read in a week. I can't tell you how many, like, there are people who
Are you
keep
very quick?
notes.
Are you like a
Yeah,
speeder?
I'm
Yeah, yeah.
actually frighteningly fast. I don't think I could do my job, honestly, if
I
I
don't think
did
you. Yeah, I don't.
read as quickly as I do. And also I have a pretty good, almost prodigious memory. So
Oh, really?
there's stuff that, not everything, but there are things where I can go back and be like, oh yeah, I have read this. And it's like literally a line, it's an image, it's something. It's
Oh,
like,
you remember it.
oh yeah, it doesn't, Happens with less frequency now. But when I was
The
younger, it
fact
was
that
like
it happens at all now is like
I can
like
walk
I
around.
saw on
Yeah,
every
it's,
yeah, yeah.
but again, it's that connective tissue, right? Like being able to put you in the context also alongside Sophia and Aria and
I
Kaveh
mean,
and
such a
Sarah Kay,
compliment to
right?
be
Like,
named alongside them. Yeah.
oh,
But no,
I,
yeah, I know what you mean. It is like it's a huge honor and also makes sense because I'm like, well, those are the people that I'm talking about when I talk about
right.
the kind of writing that I'm like, ooh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, more. Right. So it's like,
I just, and then we still get to sneak in Jem Didion because 14-year-old me is going, squee. I mean,
that's
what are you gonna? But
really
wait, before I let you go, can we talk about literary influences on you for a second? Because I feel like we've talked about your
yes.
contemporaries certainly, but I mean, you are essentially self-taught when it comes to writing. You've been
Yeah.
doing it and practicing it,
I've just done
which
it
means
for many
you
decades.
read a lot,
I've read a
and
lot.
you read a lot, but also broadly. And I'm just wondering who some of the other folks are that.
I mean, it's funny, like the more I think about it, the more I'm like, so much of this has been like, so poetically, it's like Anne Sexton and Sylvia Plath were really, really huge
Hmm.
for me in an era when I was just like, as a teenager.
Hmm.
I was also when I was first introduced to Suhair Hamad.
Yeah, yeah,
I was just like, oh, fuck, you can do this.
yeah.
Her poem, First Writing Since, I read in high
Hmm.
school as a teenager in Beirut. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Like thing by a poet, by a Palestinian poet in Brooklyn, post 9/11. And I just remember being like, I didn't know we could do that.
Yep. Yep.
Because there had been like, you have like I'd read like obviously like translations of Darwish or but it's like
Hmm.
the kind of the classics in that way. But I was like, you can
Yeah,
curse,
yeah,
you
yeah,
can talk about sex, you can talk
yeah.
about the body in that way.
Hmm.
I think that was just like such a and I've like said this before, but so first of all, Jhumpa Lahiri is one of my I mean
Yep.
that like just what she does with short fiction,
Yep.
the way she can like invoke an entire world, like that continues to be one
It's
of the
that hinge moment,
pinnacle.
right? Like she always gets the hinge moment right.
And the language is so spare,
Hmm.
actually. And as
Hmm.
someone that's super flowery, there's something where I'm just like, how? How do you do that? How do you do that? You're not even trying for poetics.
Right.
And yet it's like laser accuracy. It's incredible. Um, and so like I think Jamila Lahiri and like Amy Tan were both authors that I read around the same time, maybe a
Hmm.
little too young to read them, but like kind of like early
Yeah.
teens, and was just like, wow, that's what they did also with like intergenerational stuff
Hmm.
and how they treat women and
Yep.
like femme characters was just so, yeah. Yeah, I think those are like some of the folks that I mean, it just was, but it's interesting. You know what I didn't do at all was
Hmm.
nonfiction ever.
Okay.
I'm not a nonfiction reader. I was never a memoir reader until very, very recently. And
Hmm.
now I'm like, I can't stop. Like now it's
I
become,
get it.
I mean,
I
my
totally
God,
get it.
how was I so late to this? If I'm such a, again, like
Um,
perennially curious person and I want to know about people's lives, and then you're like, here, they're telling you about their lives. I think I
because
just
it's
had this
really
idea.
hit or miss.
And I
Memoir
think I
is
just had this
really
idea
hit or
in my head
miss.
that it wasn't going to be like fun or interesting
Yeah.
or compelling in the way that fiction would be, or how can the truth be as compelling as a lie? I guess is maybe like
Mm.
something I was thinking.
Well,
Uh,
depends on who's raising you.
yeah.
But yeah, there's certain things because sometimes, I'll see a giant literary biography and I'll get really excited because I love that person's work. And then I'm like, oh, right. But I don't actually want to read 700 pages.
Just
I want to
about
read about the work, or I want to read about
yeah, yeah,
how
yeah.
they see the world through the lens of their work, but I kind of don't actually, and I mean writers whose work I really, really love, and I'm like, oh, I forgot. I don't love this. It is extremely helpful though. I mean,
Yeah.
to have the context. But like there's this new Baldwin biography coming and I'm super stoked about it because it's actually him through the lens of lovers, mentors, and dear friends. That to me is really interesting
Oh,
because there's a
that's amazing.
framework, right?
That's
There's a
yeah, yeah,
framework where
yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
like, oh, this is totally different. Where it's not like, and here he was born at, it's,
Right,
I
right, right,
need
right. And
more
after
than
he
the
finished primary school, then
pedestrian.
he went to
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's the
I need the context for the art. I need the context for the man moving through the world kind of
right,
thing. And I
right.
don't necessarily get that if I know, like in third grade, his teacher thought he was awesome
Right,
and
right, right,
sent him
right,
home
right,
with a magic pencil. You know,
right,
it's
right.
all of that kind of stuff. And again, it just comes back to like the connection piece, right? And like
And the voice and how much you're
all of
pulled
it,
in. Yeah.
all of it, all of it, all of it.
Mm.
Okay, of course we're bumping up against time because you and I could totally take this act on the road. I think we
Perfect.
should actually.
I love this.
Um,
This is amazing.
I'm so glad we got. I really like.
Like, this has
I'm
been
just
really the
delighted.
highlight of the last month. Don't tell anybody.
I
It's
yeah.
been amazing.
All right, wait. We have to take that part out.
Yeah, yeah, that also please do that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
also, you need
No,
to also
no. All right. Let me. Yeah, yeah. No, seriously. This
okay,
is. I.
yeah.
I'm so delighted we got to do this. Um. All right, we're totally bumping up against time. Can I ask what you're working on now? Like, isn't that the conventional wisdom? Like, the new thing is out, and now you've got to have another thing in your
Have to
back
start
pocket.
anew. You know, it's funny. Because of everything that's happened in the last year and a half and
Mm,
kind of in the world, I
yeah.
have been, this is the first time that a book is published in the world where I do not have either another book like set to
Okay.
publish, even if it's, you know,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
a collection of poetry, even
yeah.
if it's a different genre, or am like super into like several, 100 pages into a
Right.
new project because I've spent so much of my time writing to sort of the urgency of the present
Yeah.
moment and like writing
Exactly.
more op-edy things and like nonfiction pieces and whatever. And so I have just begun.
Okay.
I'm just emerging from like the daydreaming phase
Okay.
of a new fiction project that is kind of like really broad strokes about a woman who kind of goes back to her hometown in the Southwest because her older sister is missing and suspected to have joined a cult, and she's
Oh,
dealing with, yeah, and I mean they're era, so it's like a very, very different, I mean, it's still gonna, I mean, connective tissue is still gonna be me, so
I,
it's still gonna
I was
have
about
some
to say.
stuff, but it's gonna be a very different, it's dealing a lot with like the stories we're told and tell ourselves about
Yeah.
whiteness, about this country, and like what we get seduced by, and yeah,
I cannot wait to read it.
I'm
I
really
cannot.
excited. Yeah,
I
I'm
will say.
excited to like make it. I mean, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, okay. Well, fingers crossed that this is the
Yeah.
project that continues to go because I really would like to
Inshallah.
read this.
Oh,
I would
yeah.
really like to read this. Hala, thank you so much
Thank
for joining us
you.
on Port Over. This is great.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening. Poured Over is a Barnes & Noble production. To help other readers find us, please rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts.